Now that we've explained a bit more about what UV mapping is, what UV maps are, and even how to display textures using UV maps, let's take things a step further and create some custom images of our own to turn this from a simple cube of wood texture into something maybe a little bit more practical. So what we're going to do next is actually export a tracing template, that is this wireframe over here on the left, and bring it into Photoshop and maybe create a bit more of a themed graphic that then can be applied back to our 3D model. So in this video, we're just going to talk through that workflow of how do I get this out of Blender into something like Photoshop that I can paint and fill in kind of more artistically, and how do I get it back into Blender for my final render. Here we go. We do not need our dark warm, seamless texture any longer, but we can leave it up there because, again, it's not actually linked to this material. Now what we want to do is I want to grab this wireframe that I have here, and I want to go into my UV tab on the UV side of my UV editing layout, go all the way to the bottom and click Export UV Layout. And this is going to export it to file, so I'll go to 3D modeling, and I will select or create a new, let's go ahead and just create a new one. I'm going to call this Cube UV, and I'm going to click Export UV Layout. Once I've exported that UV layout, I've switched over to Photoshop, and I've opened up that Cube-UV PNG. And look what I have. I have the wireframe layout exported, so that way it's easy and quick for me to paint, illustrate, do whatever I need to do to make that cube come to life. So I have a few ideas on what I want that to be, and one of them is like a small like children's block. And if you're not familiar, those like woodcut blocks that were around in goodness, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, even before I was born. And they're just kind of like an iconic cliche child's play toy block. And if you're not familiar, this is kind of what I'm talking about. These kind of like, what is this, Cooper typeface, you know, really kind of childish block letters, something a little bit like this. Now, this arrangement does not match this arrangement. So if I have this as a source texture, a source image, or something that I've created, I really need to get this arrangement into this arrangement. That way when I bring it back into Blender, everything will map properly. Now I've already taken that step. I've already done this, this arrangement, so I'm going to take a brief pause, and then when I come back, you'll see the finished product. And so here's the finished product. I've taken these graphics and I've just kind of arranged them in a slightly haphazard way. It doesn't have to be pixel perfect because we're not submitting this to any kind of award show. I just wanted to get those images decently in that kind of cross formation. So you can see maybe my 2 needs to be bumped over a little bit, and the 1 and so forth. So I might do a few of those nudges now just to demonstrate a little bit of care and craft. So I'll knock over the 2. Let's see, let's select the A, move that over. And the goal with this is to get as close as you possibly can. When you're doing this for your assignments and for your projects, this is a moment where craft and care really will show through in the final product. But for a quick exercise and demonstration like this, we don't have to be super perfect on it. It's really just going to bug me if these aren't like at least decently in the way. Once we have everything arranged, we need to turn off the tracing image. We do not want this black outline or that kind of like faded gray impacting our texture. It really will show up in our final model. So turn that off, and then we're going to save this object, and then when we come back, we'll load it into Blender and see how it goes. I've saved my ABC Blocks UV map, and now I'm ready to bring it back into Blender and apply it to my cube and to display it as a tracing image in my UV editing window. Easy to do, so I'll simply click on the open image over in my UV editor. I'm going to grab ABC Blocks UV, click open image, and there we can see that displayed. And now if you remember, the wireframe is actually still here. So on first glance, you might think, oh no, I left my wireframe on. But don't worry. You can move it out of the way and see that sure enough, it is not displayed. So second, if you recall, we have to update our material. This is simply a tracing image. It's the material that's actually going to do the work for us. So I'm going to click on that folder over on the right-hand side, and I'm going to load ABC Blocks UV there as well. And sure enough, I can see now my cube now looks much more like one of those childlike blocks. I can hit the render button, F12, and sure enough, it comes through in a render as well. Now there's some kind of uncleanliness because I wasn't pixel perfect with it that we could certainly make better, but there we are.